All right, hello. We are here today with Marria Buchan, founder and owner of Practical Homestead. Hello, Marria.
Hello.
Okay, so I wanted to just start by asking, what's your story in business? How did this start for you?
Um, well, I've always wanted to own my own business. My parents owned their own businesses when I was a kid, and I took business management marketing in school, but I just never had like an idea. And we started a family really young, and so I just, was busy and just had to have like the quick, easy jobs to juggle kids and that. And then in August of 2018, I lost my job that I had had for like 7 years, a really long time. And I was on EI and I was like, just praying, okay, God, I could just go do another desk job and be tied down, and I'm fine with that. But I would love to own my own business. And then like if the phone rings and there's like a ministry opportunity or someone needs help or whatever, go for coffee or help them with something, that I can just drop what I'm doing and go. Because when you're on your own boss, you kind of own your time that way. But it's okay if you want me to just work a regular job like I have been, then that's fine too. And then he just totally gave me this idea for this business. And and I prayed and I was like, well, really, can I do that? And he goes, yes. And it's going to bless not just you, but other people. And I, didn't totally know what that meant, obviously, at the time. And I think I have a little bit of an idea now, but not, I don't know. Anyways, so I launched off on that, and um, it's actually really interesting because it came out of my own interest. Like I grew up on Vancouver Island and in BC, and it's like very green, crunchy kind of place. And we lived on this little acreage with multiple little houses, and we had shared one well, so we were super careful about water and thinking about conservation and things like that. So just kind of always grown up with like making do with what you have, reusing what you have, that kind of thing. And I had purchased some container covers when I lived in BC. And by this time that this whole business idea was coming to fruition, we moved all the way halfway across the country to Manitoba. And these container covers had been made in China, and I just love them. They're amazing. And I thought, I love to sew. Like, I think this is what I should do. And and then rather than some unknown factory worker in a third world or whatever, I could make a living sewing. That would be really cool. So that's what the initial launch was, and then I had to research, where to find the materials and all that. And so my supplier for the lining is in America, and it's like super high grade, food safe, amazing, doesn't use any bad chemicals. And then I just really thought about what else could go with this that is in the same genre. So then you helped me design the bread bag, which is amazing for storing bread, and that did super well during the certain time when people were locked up and had to make bread at home. So we sold an awful lot of those online. And then there's a cheese wrap and sandwich wraps and snack bags, and you know all these things that are in that kind of genre. And I think to fast forward about like where was the part where it blessed other people. I mean, certainly, obviously, when someone is texting you for prayer or hey, can we get together or whatever, and then I get to stop and go do that. Obviously, that's an obvious answer. But also, there were like three young girls that worked with me and have now since gone on to higher education and doing other things. But I got to sort of help bridge some time, and they got to help me grow and learn even how to be an employer. I'd never done that before, so that was really interesting. And it's a very hard thing to do because you have to have this, obviously quality control. But the thing is that people are going to make mistakes, just like I would make mistakes, and I would be gracious to myself. I have to be even more gracious to them because they're not even me. They don't even like necessarily get rewarded in the same sense. Obviously, they get paid, but not like how I do. And so when they make a mistake that costs me money, like, oh, okay, well, I wonder if it's fixable or if we can use those things for something else. But in the main thing is just now, don't do that. And just to be super gracious about it. And I found that good for me, just to not be like hardcore perfectionist, like, because otherwise you couldn't work with anyone if I was like that. So that was good for me. And I guess like one thing that did happen that was kind of unfortunate, but maybe it's just human nature, is uh, at one point, I don't know, year 3 or something, like the business was doing really, really well, and like way bigger than I ever thought possible. I mean, like 6 figures out of nothing from like a sewing business. Like who's ever heard of that? But the bad part for me was that it kind of like became a prideful thing for me, and so that was something I really had to repent of and let go of, and just be like, wow, God, like, how dare I take something that you gave me and then think it's all, yay me. Um, so that was really important. And I mean, we all can get caught up in whatever our things are, like whether you trust in your health, your relationship, your bank account, your ability to earn, your business. It doesn't matter what it is that you idolize, but it definitely is a eye opener to like be really careful not to let things become an idol. So I think I know I've really like laid that down, and every time something goes well, I'm just like, wow, thank you, God. Not in any way thinking, oh yeah, that's because of me. Like, no. Um, so I'm very grateful. It's been like, I started officially like February of 2019. So it's been like over 6 years now. Yeah, like this month is my 6 year anniversary. Wow. So I feel very fortunate. I mean, my mom taught me how to sew when I was just like a little kid, and just to imagine. Obviously, I took tons of sewing classes and stuff since then, but just to imagine that you can make a living at something that you learned at such a young age is also really cool. And sorry, I'm being kind of weepy. The other thing that's kind of cool is like God is the creator, and so He made us to create, and that's one thing I really like about it, is that I get to make things, and they're useful and people love them. Like my customers that discover me and try them and stuff, like so that's really cool. And sometimes if I get discouraged and then someone comes along at a market and they're just like, I just want to tell you, like, I bought this last year. It's my favorite thing in my kitchen. And I'm just like, oh, thank you. Um, so those little gems are lovely, just to encourage you when, when you need it.
Yeah,
Sorry, that was a
thank
long
you.
answer.
No, 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 no. That's a part of this channel, is just letting the conversation go as naturally as possible. So, I appreciate your openness with all of that, because it is like owning your own business is it's exciting. The wins are yours, but so are the failures, and so are the trials and the difficulties, right? So, can you identify kind of like your top win and your top failure so far? Like,
Well, my top failure probably was really at the very beginning, when this really big retailer in my city reached out, and I didn't even know who they were. And then I went to the wrong location because I thought it was that garden center, but it wasn't. It was this huge one on the other side of town. So I had to reschedule the appointment when I showed up at the wrong place. Didn't do my homework, obviously, looking up on a map, typing it in. I just assumed, oh, it's Schreimers, but it was really Shelmerdine. Anyway, so I went there, met with the buyer, and she just like ordered like 24 of everything. And I had just started. Like I had, like, we didn't like have a loan. We didn't have investment. We literally just like, I bought, a half a bolt of fabric at retail price for the lining, not even knowing that I could buy twice as much for wholesale for half the price, and so I'm just like bootstrapping it. I go to the farmer's market, I sell. On my way home, I stop at the fabric land and buy more fabric to keep going. Like it was just like hand to fist, hand to fist. So when she wanted like 24 of everything, I got completely overwhelmed, and I basically ghosted her and never fulfilled the order, never communicated, nothing. And then, like, I don't know, it was a year later, I tried to get back with her to apologize and to, try to get the business again. And it's never, ever come to fruition. And that's fine. I've let it go. But so that was probably my biggest mistake, just being overwhelmed and then not communicating. Um, and then biggest win, I don't know. The first thing that comes to mind when I say that out loud would be like being at a market in person that's like direct to consumer, and in like 4 days selling like $10,000 worth of product. I never thought that was possible. And I'm sure, I know there's other vendors that'll sell 40, 50,000 in that time, and that's great for them. But for me, 10,000 is a ton. And I'm very surprised that that's even possible. So,
So what is the secret sauce for you then? Because like that's quite a weekend, you know. For most people, that's a third or a fourth of their income, in a given year. So what is that like? What are you doing? Like what's different about you? What's different about your product?
well, my product isn't for everyone. And it's not like super cheap, like at the dollar store, because it's made handmade by Canadians. So it costs money, and fabric is not cheap and all that. So already you're into this demographic of people that have a disposable income. And then it's also, my demographic is people that they like reusable things. So they don't buy cheap, like you I can just profile, like they'll have very, very plain, non flashy leather shoes that are high quality. They won't have like a brand name purse. They won't have their nails done. They probably don't dye their hair. People that do those things don't like my products. People that are like just more crunchy, just more green, more like, simple, like I would say, like them. And then, so yeah, so there's definitely like a demographic, and that's great. And then I guess most makers, to be honest, are quite introverted because a lot of the job is at home by yourself, like making things. But I'm one of the rare makers that's actually extroverted. So that does help at a market, because I can just, like, if I spot someone that looks like my demographic, I will try to get their eye and literally call them over, like, hey, can I tell you about my stuff? I kid you not, because I'm like, whoa, that's like a whale, they'll spend a few $100s with me. And then with just like almost anybody that walks by, I could tell them about like my cheese wrap, because that's like something that everybody can use. It's handy and it's not so nichey. And I just try to make eye contact and say, hey, like, can I tell you about my products, or can I tell you about my bestseller? And I'm holding my cheese wrap, and they're like, okay. Or they're like, no, thanks. But honestly, like 3/4 of the people say, okay. And then, half of those people buy it. So, I mean, I'm not just standing there. Like, I do actively engage, and I do try. Um, to the point where I literally, after a 4-day weekend like that, like I will lose my voice. My hands will be sore from demoing. I'll just won't be able to talk for a few days afterwards. I mean, it's a lot of work, but I do work it.
So what I'm hearing, just to try and paraphrase, is that your materials are better than the average material. The workmanship is handmade, so it's not in a mill or mass produced. Because I know even some local efforts have factories and mass production. So you're doing it like each piece by hand. And then you're also saying that you have somehow the ability to work on your own, and then go into public and be on and extroverted, and therefore be a salesperson. So, like, I mean, that sounds exhausting to me. So, so what, like, what's your hope? What's your goal for this? You've obviously you've started something from nothing, which any entrepreneur can do that, but to maintain it a few years, that's a whole other animal. So you've managed to do that. So what next? What's next? Where are you going? Where are you going with this? Like, do you want to replicate yourself, or like how do you see that?
Well, I certainly can find people to sew for me, but I've never found somebody that can sell like I can.
Mhm.
Like, those people are already running their, own businesses and doing their own thing. Like, people with my skill set don't usually work for someone else.
Mhm.
So duplicating myself exactly isn't really realistic. Now, that being said, like, do I love, driving 6, 8, whatever hours away and being gone for 5 days to do a market in Q4, which here in Canada means snow and all that kind of stuff? Like, no. And then, as you know, like setting up a booth, which takes like 12, 15 hours, like it's a lot of work, and it is exhausting for sure. I think I would love to be able to like transition to, 3/4 of my income being online instead of 1/4, because 1/4 about is online and 1/4 is in person. or 3/4 is in person. Sorry. So I'd rather flip that, but I don't know. And then, like I'm 54. So in 10 years, do I want to be slogging like folding tables and crates full of goods and all that in 10 years from now? That's probably not that realistic. So I do hope that online can pick up. But you miss out on that connection with people and explaining it and showing them why it's better than what they've tried before or what have you. So maybe that's not possible. I don't know. I'm not really sure.
What's if you were to give yourself advice, if you were to time travel back a few years, what's something you'd say to your, earlier self?
Well, don't let it become an idol. Don't think, yeah, that was like a huge thing that I wish I had known. Um, Advice. Well, I mean, I don't know, probably like go for it. We've tried all different kinds of things. We've had our own website with our own shopping cart. We've had a wholesale website. Um, we've tried to have news like emails. And in the last 6 years, the world has changed a lot. So I don't know that there is an exact formula considering how things change and how things are have shifted in this time, especially culturally. So I think probably the biggest advice is really be like, go for it, but be flexible because nothing's like locked in for sure. Nothing's going to be like, oh, that worked this year, might not work next year. Um, and so, yeah, don't count your eggs before they're hatched because next year that might not work. And, yeah. And that's what's happening actually for me is that, uh, not that I've saturated the market where I live, but like a lot of people have my stuff, and sadly, it lasts super long. So it's not like they have to buy it every year. I mean, it's a good thing, but it's not right for sales. So now here I am driving like 6 and 8 hours and 10 and 12 hours, whatever I've got planned for May. I'm going to Edmonton, which is super far, and in end of March I'm going to Regina, which is 6 hours. And in the summer I go to Kenora, which is 2.5. So um, yeah, like here I am having to get further away from home just to get new customers. So that's challenging and not great for family life, home life.
Right, right. Okay. Like you had mentioned this, that you'd advise your earlier self, I'm just calling you that, yourself from a few years ago, to not make this an idol. And you touched on it before, but can you expand on that a bit? Like what was idolatrous about it? Because, and on one hand, the world is going to look at this as like you're a successful, woman entrepreneur who has created something from nothing. What isn't there to be proud of? So, what in your mind would you say was idolatrous about it for you, and how do you avoid that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with being proud of creating something from nothing, but I think the difference is thinking that, I did that without God, right? Like that this is me. And it's really not. I mean, He gave me the mom He gave me to teach me how to sew when I was a little kid. He gave me an interest in sewing. He gave me the idea that do this for a business, like this whole genre of like reusable things. And said to me, yeah, it will be a blessing to you and to others, whatever that means. And so when I got like, making more money than I've ever made in my life at a job where I'm in control of my schedule, like, yeah, I got way too prideful. I was just like, wow, like I've made it, and it just wasn't a good place to be. I think what it really comes down to is that my business consumed me and it was more important to me than pretty much everything else, probably including you, and definitely including God. So I think it's a priority thing where it went to the top of the ladder and you and God were like lower. And so I think that's the danger when with success is the priorities get out of whack.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I get that. I really do. And you've talked about having like a strong connection with God through this. So I have to ask a question about advice you'd give someone who's just starting out in whatever business they have, what advice do you have from the sense of, on the ground, just go for it, what they should do, but also coupling that with how do you involve God where you're not rushing ahead of him? So in those two ways, answer that however you wish, but what advice would you give somebody who's just starting out?
Well, I think that where the mistake was with me was just allowing the success to go to my head, and that those feelings and that entire line of thinking surpassed, my relationship and time I spent with you, or my relationship and time I spent with the Lord. And so I think it's a priority thing. It's like, it doesn't matter how much you wish for success or wish for there to be money in the bank. Don't let it surpass the things that are actually important in life, because money comes and goes, but like your family, your spouse, God, that's the bedrock of your life. So don't let the things that go up and down become more important than the bedrock.
Mm.
And I think well, I know it's extremely easy to do that, and but it's also very dangerous.
Mm.
And I feel loved, like that God is our Father. He disciplines us. I feel loved that He was like, whoa, this is wrong. Don't do that. Like, and just, shook me out of it. And I'm very grateful for that.
One thing I could definitely, have a testimony towards is just that it's interesting to see the breadcrumbs in our lives about how God leads us into the plan that he has for us. And at the time, we have no clue the puzzle pieces he's putting together. And so, when I met you in college, you're doing business administration, but I learned kind of as I, got to know you, that you were also a sewist and pretty talented at it too. So fast forward 30 some odd years, or almost 30 years at that point, I guess you're starting your business. Those two worlds came together, right? And in a way that you probably couldn't predict when you're at college doing business management and marketing, or certainly not when you were
Mm-hmm.
making your grad dress and stuff like that for high school. So like all of that kind of converged into this thing where it's like, yeah, you've been doing this for a few years, and it's been like puzzle pieces of the life coming together to create this picture that you could not have possibly anticipated. So like I think that's encouraging. And my one thing to encourage others, if I were to be so bold as to interject in that way, is just that you never know what is coming in front of you that is going to matter a few years from now. Pay attention to everything in the moment and don't take it for granted. And if you've been given a talent, skill, or ability, don't ignore those things. I think the world will do everything it possibly can to crush us into a factory mentality, where we can't create or innovate or have passion over something because, that doesn't pay the bills, but it actually can, right? You know that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
do you have anything to kind of speak to that or anything to say to that?
Yeah. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. Can you just summarize what you said again?
Sure. I mean, just the bottom line is that God pulls together seemingly disparate things
Oh yeah,
into
the
one
puzzle.
picture. Yeah.
Yes, right. That was the thing, is like God sees this huge puzzle of our life, and we're just on this little path, and we don't see mountains and valleys and trees with fruit on it, and friendships and business ideas that are going to come along the way, but he knows it all.
Hmm.
And so you had said, like, don't ignore the little things along the way, like that you have an interest, that you have a hobby, that you have a skill, that you have a passion. Like those are things that God gave you. And it could very well be that something, he will use that in some way to bless you and to bless others.
Hmm.
And if I was from a different kind of family, they might have been like, you have to go be a doctor, or a lawyer, like some sort of letters behind your name kind of person with a proper career, whatever. I mean, my parents weren't like that, obviously, but and then so someone who's like got this incredible talent to be an artist or a potter or whatever gets shuffled into being a brain surgeon, and they hate it, and they're like, I just want to make pottery and art and whatever. So yeah, the path and the big picture of what, God can see things in us, and as we pursue him, he can make a way. Like, just like my prayer was like, okay, well, this job came to an end. I'm willing to go do another desk job, but I'd really like to be self-employed. God, could that be possible? And he's like, yes, do this.
Mhm.
And, thank goodness I asked, right? Like, I could have just done what I've always done and just gone and worked for another company again and been miserable. Like, I hate being employed by someone else. I hate being told what to do. I hate having to do something when you don't know why. Like, if you tell me why and I buy into it, I'm like 100% there. I'll work as if it's my business. But if I get told you have to do this, but I'm not going to tell you why because you're just a minion, oh man, I can't handle that. But anyways, that's a sidetrack. Yeah, so I think that God does see the big picture. So trusting Him, and trusting that when He puts in like passions, talents, abilities, and dreams, that there's a reason for that, and don't be scared of it.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. That's great advice. And like, how can people find you right now? Like, what's if because I mean, if somebody wants some advice or wants to reach out, how do they get a hold of you at this point?
Well, my email is just Marria at practicalhomestead.ca, and that's like Marria at practicalhomestead.ca. We turned off our shopping cart website and just point straight to Etsy because it just does better. So it's just Practical Homestead CA on Etsy. And yeah, and I'm on Instagram too. It's just Practical Homestead. And yeah,
Okay.
welcome to reach out if you want. Would love it if you would order something, obviously. But yeah, no, thanks for chatting.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate this. I think this is one of these really, really useful, oddly enough, practical conversations where you can give practical advice as an entrepreneur, as a Christian, navigating that world of business, with integrity and heart, but also with really good product and what that means and the challenges that come with that. So I think it's a great conversation. Hopefully, we can have another one again. When you have more updates and stuff like that, let's just kind of keep that on the top because I really think it's a valuable conversation for anybody that's in business out there. So thank you, really. Uh, Okay.
Well, thank you for your help.
Oh, not a problem. So I'm gonna say goodbye now, and
Yeah.
yeah, and just I'll see you in about 2 minutes as we cross the room. Talk later. Bye.